Okay, welcome to our episode club. It was a little bit hectic getting started, but that's starting to be par for the course. I am currently raising money on my coffee to buy a good webcam. All the webcams are on sale. Thanks, Mohammed. Yeah, all the webcams were like sold out, but it's yeah, every week I'm like, all right, let's figure this out, and then it just ends up down to the wire, and then I Control Alt Delete everything and plug old reliable in, and we do it. So anyway, all that aside, yes, I am here. We made it. Thank you. Hey, Brad. Glad to have you here. I'm excited to talk about this. We are going to talk about the Expanse. I shout out in the chat if you haven't watched these episodes. The episodes that were suggested, I gotta turn that light down, hang on. The episodes that were suggested were the end of season 3. So this was the Congregation and Abaddon's Gate. And but it's really just the conclusion of the arc that goes from sort of season 3, episode 7 through the end of season 3, and then kicking off the events in season 4. So good. I'm glad you've seen it. Brad, it's awesome. It's awesome. This is one of my favorite storylines, and I don't think that this is in the book. I have to do better about reading the Expanse books. I'll just put that out there. But all of that being said, it's solid. It's so riveting and it's so cool, and the science in it is good. And even there was one point where I thought I had it. I was doing a gotcha, and nope. So I have to give credit to the Expanse executive producer, Naren Shakar, who started his career out as a science consultant on Star Trek The Next Generation. Just saying. If we talk about life goals, that's it. So, yeah, pretty cool. But I think that speaks to the quality of the science that we see in The Expanse. Obviously, the book series has awesome scientific quality as well, but I think they really stuck to it in the show, and I think that's valid. All right, so we'll just kind of break through episode 12 and 13, and then we'll kind of do those big high-level concepts and talk a little bit about like some of the events that had happened prior to it and maybe some that have happened afterwards. But feel free to chime in. I'm happy to take this conversation wherever we want to go. But Congregation, season 3, episode 12, starts off basically in recovery, like the second recovery from this deceleration event. And it took me a second. I was like, oh, I remember something happened. So to recap, the deceleration event, basically what happened was that they had this ring system, right? This ring showed up. It showed up, basically the proto-molecule went from Venus, shot through the solar system, went to 2 AU, which is an astronomical unit, a unit of distance. It's the same distance that Earth is from the sun, away from Uranus. So it went, if you take the Earth's distance from the sun, multiply that by 2, and then go to Uranus, that's how far away it is from Uranus orbit. And basically this ring formed. And I think in episode 7 or 8, we have a hotshot slingshotter from Ceres who is doing this race and trying to get the best time and trying to impress his partner, girlfriend, wife, I guess, I forget. By using gravitational slingshots, yeah, as he's going around. And then basically is like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go into the ring. I'm going to go into the ring. This is happening. This is happening. And if you've seen this, it's the most graphic depiction of inertia I've ever seen. A body wanting to continue moving, and then the ship says, you're not moving anymore. And he ends up pancaked in a spectacularly gory, horrific fact. No kidding. I was like, jaw dropped. Expletive. I mean, it was awesome. But yeah, jaw dropping. Like I said, if you haven't seen that, definitely recommend it. It was so horrific that I couldn't help but laugh and also be in awe of the depiction of why we care about inertia. It's kind of where we went with that. But basically, the science, now we get the Rocinante is going to go through the ring because that's how we roll, because Holden's a little bit chaotic. Oh, thanks, Josh. And they go in it slower. Smart. And basically, they find out that within this ring, there's like a bubble of space that doesn't seem to be the solar system. It seems to be like a gate to another part, and it's like this bubble, and then right at the center, they have they call it the ring station, but it's like this nucleus, sort of big planetoid moon type thing, all artificial looking, proto-molecule looking, right at the center. They realize that physics has changed once they go through this gate, and now the speed limit for any massive object is 18,000 kilometers an hour, or 5,000 meters per second. So it's not exactly going to like stop you from walking around or, you know, throwing things, or, you know, you're not going to really break that just with normal behavior. So you can still walk around. But when a ship enters that, the ships are hauling, especially ones that are able to make it across the solar system in a not unreasonable time, they're probably pushing that. And as we saw. So again, this is all prior to this. This is all the lead up to Congregation. But they enter the ring space, and they basically go to investigate like what the heck is going on with the station. Holden's being Holden, and he goes in with some of the MCRN Marines to go investigate. They end up like inside this station where it's 1G gravity, breathable atmosphere, kind of tailored to them. So a little bit weird. We had our special investigator who, you know, is like the aliens that are speaking to Holden through him. Whole thing. Anyway, they start to the Marines. One of the Marines with them kind of freaks out. They fire their guns, which then slow down. You can see them like moving through gel, and then he throws a grenade, and the grenade detonates, and then it basically blows him up. And oh, Zach, yay! It blows the guy up who threw the grenade, and basically uses him to patch the holes in the station. So yeah, pretty bonkers. But yeah. Hang on one second. Awesome. Yes, indeed. Right? They're like, this guy's in here causing problems, and so we're just gonna disintegrate him and then use him to patch up the hole that he made. And we're also gonna then change the laws of physics again, such that now the limit is 28.997 meters per second. Basically based on this grenade weapons discharge that happened. Yeah, you're welcome. So yeah, some of you might notice, and actually, Brad, I'm gonna do that. I forgot to add you into that as well. So I'll do that after the chat. But I just wanted to thank some of the people who've been around with me for a really long time. So I was able to enable VIPs. So thank you all for those of you who have supported me and continue to support me. But yeah, so the laws of physics change. The sphere basically is like, you can't be trusted. So we're going to change the laws of physics again, so you can't projectile grenade the crap out of our station. That's how we're going to protect ourselves. Smart. I guess. Bonkers. Physics sort of says no. I'm going to go into that a little bit once we get through the background story here that's happening. But when they changed that law of physics, remember, the ships came into the ring system. They kind of all got like realigned, and they're all obeying this constant velocity. And then when the speed limit changed from 5,000 meters per second to 30 meters per second, huge deceleration, like instantaneous. Calculating it, it was a 507 G force. So 507 times Earth's gravity was the deceleration that they went into. You should be dead. So credit, yeah, correct. Credit to the technology on these ships. We'll just say it bluntly. Credit to the inertial dampeners that the Belters, the Earth, and the MCRN all, or the UNN, the MCRN, and the Belters all seem to have on their ship, that they didn't just all completely pancake, because our bodies cannot withstand 500 G deceleration. So we have to imagine that the technology in the ships somehow were able to absorb that and keep that from getting worse. Still was bad. Thousands and thousands of people died. The Racer did not have that at all. The Racer was basically like relying on seatbelts. Man, that was brutal. It's just burned into my brain. The image of him. It's the best way I can describe it. But yeah, so all of the ships basically instantaneously like slow way the heck down, and bad things happen. Lots of people died, mostly just from like stuff being shifted around, and they do get thrown. This is where we had the okay, I wrote down some of this stuff. So Drummer, she's in charge of the Belter ship, which is the, I can't remember names, the Behemoth. So the Behemoth is the Belter ship, and Drummer was running it. She gets trapped with, oh God, my favorite dude. I can't remember his name. I took his name for credit, and then when I'm in pressure, I can't think of it. The Big Mormon Space Church. Ashford, thank you. Oh, thanks, Comtrend. Welcome. And yeah, we love him. We love him. If I had a whiskey right now, we would be hecka toasting Ashford. We love him. So yeah. Anyway, they got trapped. They got injured. He took over. Yeah, cheers to Ashford. Anyway, he took over because Drummer was super, super duper injured in that. And that's where this story picks up. So things have gone crazy. They're still trying to figure out what's going on. They're trying to figure out like if they're trapped, because with this limitation to their speed, they're like, we're not really going to be able to get out of here in any sort of reasonable time. And this is behaving in a super bizarre way that none of us quite understand. Everyone's activated, so we talk about the artificial gravity in the Expanse relies on ships accelerating and decelerating at 1G at 9.8 meters per second squared. Here they're not. They're limited in velocity. They're all kind of being held around this ring station. And so they are in 0G, and we do see them with their mag boots so they can walk around. But the various shootings that happen, blood splatters, the blood splatter hangs in 1G. And then, when Ashford shot the guy on the bridge, and he basically like hovered there. It was cool. It was weird, but it was cool and scientifically accurate. So basically what they figure out is that this whole area, this ring space, we'll call it, I think they also call it a slow zone, one or the other, slow zone, ring space, we'll just refer to where they're in as ring space, was basically made by the protomolecule. It generated this ring that is essentially a wormhole to this like neutral zone area, where physics behaves slightly differently. They do realize on the behemoth that they do have tight beam communication lasers. Because the behemoth was meant to be like a generation ship, it was a Mormon space station where they were intended to go off and live out generations out in deep space. But they had this equipped because of that with a tight beam comm laser that could send messages over 100 light years. And basically what that means is when they fire this comm laser, you see it. I think that's, they talk about it being an optical communications laser. All it's doing is sending information, right? But the point is that it's sending super high energy signals. So this is where we think of light as a wave and a particle. It kind of helps to think about it a little more like a particle here in my brain. But when you were sending out a signal, right, you send it out and over time it's going to do this. And then the receiving end, this signal is going to be weaker and weaker as it goes. And so you try to get that as high energy and as tight beamed as possible. So when you fire it out, it can go a lot further before it's, dissipated to the point that you can't pick that up. So its basically range of communication is over 100 light years. And they would be able to do that. Our solar system, even on its way outer edges is only 1 light year. So, but what they're assuming is that they're like, all right, well, we can fire this comm laser beam. It'll go through the ring and then it will continue on, that it'll make it through whatever sort of interference is going on there. So let's talk about that for a second. So the border of this ring, where it's basically bubble solar system, right? Bubble solar system. And then you have this barrier that's this ring. We do see these time-space distortions that are going on. We do get like this lensing effect with the stars sort of on the other side of it. You can see, and they seem to be distorted. There seems to be lensing. And that would be normal for any kind of, distortion in space-time. You would see the light be lensed effectively. And so that works. Now, it doesn't seem to have a gravitational component. Like, things aren't pulled toward it. It just seems to be like more like stargates than wormholes, even though stargates are a form of a wormhole. But what we're saying is that we've taken 2 points in space-time and just stapled them together and built a hole through them. There's no sort of naturally falling into, coming out of thing. Because if we did have that, then that would be where gravity would come in. This is just that they are stapled together and then there's a little portal to go between them. So that's kind of where that comes from. So they have that. They figure that sort of portal has this wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, space-timey stuff going on. They're like, well, maybe, we were able to physically move through it, but we can't really get back. What if this super high energy tight beam laser can actually punch its way through? That it will just survive that distorted space-time and escape and get a signal out to say, we're here, we're alive, things have gone weird. It came out of the stargates. Yes, they did. So you could chuck something through a stargate and it would chuck out of the other side. Momentum was conserved, as it were. And I think they're kind of going on that principle as well. They just think they have the better chance of sending this signal out. But the really interesting thing here, so they want to tune the laser to the visible range so they can get this energy out. And at this point, I was like, speed of light. And I wrote speed of light, a big question mark, that the physical space has a limitation, but photons and the speed of light seems to not be changed in this environment. So any mass, any distortion of space-time is limited, but light can still travel through. This is kind of hard to science because we can think about it like them being trapped in some sort of gel or some sort of medium, whether that's like a fog or water or gel, like I said. But that does affect even how, light refracts and things through that. And there are distortions that happen. So that said, they're saying the speed, we have to assume the speed of light is not changed at this point. And they're able to travel. So if you have mass, you have a speed limitation. If you don't have mass, light, you're able to travel normally. What they do is they fire it at the hole, and essentially they start to measure an increase in temperature of the ring. So as this energy is hitting, it's not punching through, it's getting dissipated throughout this bubble, this gate, and then the ring on the outside is absorbing that energy. Not good news. I mean, it really implies they're not able to get a signal out, that this method of trying it isn't able to get it out because it's being absorbed. Essentially, if you're firing it at this hole, you see the outside heating up, you're knowing you're losing energy to that thermal transfer and conservation of energy. But we've broken a few laws of physics here already with that mass speed limit. So we can go with it. But the idea of this thermal dissipation, conservation of energy, that's what they're implying. They're implying conservation of energy still holds and they're not able to get a signal through it. They decide to sort of test it and to see what they can do to try to get a signal out, to try to see what their limitations are here. They decide to create a high-energy radioactive burst. They're going to detonate a nuke and try to get these high-energy photons maybe able to interfere with the ring and with the space. Photons are light. They've just fired this visible high-energy laser at the ring. That energy got dissipated. So they're like, well, let's go to higher energies. Higher energies being nuclear reactions, which is true. When the nukes will go off, that will send out a ton of energy, including high energy photons. And so they're like, well, we have this like dismantled, crummy sort of skipper ship here that does have a reactor core, so let's get it as far away from us as reasonably makes sense, and we'll detonate it and then see what happens. They do that. Again, I wrote speed of light, ? But the cool thing here is that they detonate it. You see this bubble do that, but we saw the explosion, which still implies that the speed of light is holding. Because if the speed of light was technically slowed down, you would detonate it and then you wouldn't see anything because the speed of light would have changed. And that's kind of the trippy part about this, that if the ring station, if the ring space had changed the speed of light based on this nuke detonating, we would never see the nuke go off. It would go off and then we assume instantaneously correct for it, not allowing light to travel in the way that we would imagine. Now, if they just slow down the speed of light, then it would eventually make it to us, but it would be after we, hit go. But all that physical matter, the massive particles, do get slowed down, and that's that frozen bubble that we see, which is pretty sweet. The station starts behaving weirdly. The ring station starts basically detonating magnetic charges. It starts to see it kind of pulsing, and everyone's like, this looks like what do they call it? This looks like a railgun charging. Railguns are a thing. Railguns basically use this premise of electromagnetic energy, charges up, and then when you release it, you have essentially like the bullet train has some sort of electromagnetic levitation that happens. Is basically that, and you're just able to fire this out because your bullet, your pellet, your whatever thing you're firing, you need to have it be like metallic, for example, so it does feel that that charge buildup. And then if you remember from your Physics 101 about, the Navy has electromagnetic railguns. These are a thing. And it's basically just using that right-hand rule. If you remember that from physics, you have an electric charge or electric current going this way, you're going to get an electromagnetic field going in this direction. And then that direction can then propel something this way. So if you run a charge this direction, you can create an electromagnetic field and you can build it up and then release that energy and it just, it's a railgun. And so they're talking about these like pulses that are happening. That's kind of what they're implying, that it's sort of building up these currents and building up this electromagnetic energy. And they're just like, that looks like a railgun. And also it's directing it at the ring gate. So story-wise, where we're at, this proto-molecule alien species has developed a technology such that it can open up a wormhole. It finds worlds that are habitable. It opens up a world to like this test zone where it tests the behavior of the civilization that goes into it by protecting itself and, by adjusting these, to compensate for kinetic weapons. If there's kinetic weapon fire that does any damage, it just changes the speed that mass can travel at to protect itself. And then if it keeps getting challenged, the way they phrase it is that this alien species is going to cauterize their wound. They're essentially just going to shut the door off and say, forget these folk, they be cray, and we're done. Like, we're not going to deal with that anymore. So these pulses are increasing in frequency and amplitude, and it's going to be a few hours before it's this continuous thing. And bless the writers of this show, Ashford goes, well, but photons still travel at the speed of light. And I was like, God, they acknowledged it. I love this show. The show is brilliant. So any concerns I had with this just went out the window. We don't have to explain why photons versus mass can have different maximum speeds. But they acknowledge it. And he just straight up says, yeah, we're good. We're noticing that this behavior is happening. So that's awesome. All right, so that's kind of where episode 12 ends. Then we get into episode 13, Abaddon's Gate. Basically, this detonating reactor, this bomb, showed the alien species that their ships are weapons. That every single ship there is a weapon. They have a reactor engine on board, which is valid. I mean, they've talked about that before, but I like how they made that kind of clear here. That every ship, no matter what extent they use these in, uses nuclear power as their engine. They talked about that when we did the Expanse last time, when we talked about the Epstein drive. He was talking about ways to make these engines just more fuel efficient. Didn't necessarily go into like what specifically that fuel was. We also had seen this before with what's her face, the awesome engineer, when she had to mask their drive signature. So this idea that they're all using the same technology in principle, they're all using nuclear power technology, but to what extent and how it's distributed and where that fuel goes is dependent on the type of ship. But regardless, they all have nuclear reactors. This is fine. Honestly, I think, Naomi, thank you. Thoroughly appreciate. This is fine. When we send spacecraft up into our solar system, they all have some form of nuclear power. It's a heat source. It's efficient. The amount of energy you get for the mass that you have to send up there is pretty good. We don't have to get into the political aspects of nuclear power. think that's for another day, and definitely when I need a whiskey. But a lot of it, like, oh, awesome. Yeah, I need to, those really need to move up on my list. But yeah, from what I've heard, you're totally fine going from the series into the books. But yeah, it is really interesting, and this is a really good episode that I do like a lot. But just briefly about the nuclear power thing, there is a lot of interesting studies in our culture, our scientific culture, and our sociological reactions to scientific advancements. We have to collectively follow a kind of series of events for us to be able to accept advances in technology. Thank you, Denailer. I put my face ahead of the thing. That's why that wasn't showing up. Put my face ahead of the thing. Like I said, I had multitude of tech issues right up to the wire, but thank you for the follow. And so, for example, some of you may have heard, when elevators were invented or lifts were invented, they still employed elevator operators far beyond the capability of the elevator. You didn't actually need someone to press the button to make it work. You could press it yourself, but we were still resistant to that. So until we saw that it was easy to use, that anyone can use it, that we were kind of eased into this technology. When it comes to nuclear power, it happened in all the wrong order. This would be like the example of, the first elevators being installed had accidents everywhere. And then no one is going to touch an elevator for a really long time. And that's kind of what happened with nuclear power, is that built the technology, but then the regulation and the way that it was handled as it was slowly starting to be rolled out wasn't done very well. And the first introduction a lot of people had to nuclear power was through epic accidents. And so that's made society reticent to accept nuclear power. Understandably, because that was most people's first exposure to it. That's what stuck in their brain. They weren't able to see, we live, there's so many people who have lived on it for so long, and we're fine. So anyway, that's just a little aside. But I do think, as a stopgap, and particularly when it comes to space, because space is really cold and very big, and the space community has been relying on nuclear power for its spacecraft for a long time because of this reason. That's completely acceptable and not out of the realm of possibilities. However, in the Expanse, we have now just showed an alien space that essentially all of our ships have bombs on them. And look at what they can do. That big blowy thing. Yeah, if all these ships did that would not be good. So this, the ring space is essentially like, all right, we're shutting this nonsense down. Now, there were some sort of cool scenes here that were going on. Like I said at the top of this, because these ships aren't able to accelerate or decelerate, they're being frozen at the very least a constant velocity, but they appear to just be frozen. They are experiencing 0G throughout all the ships, and they stay true to that. One of the coolest scenes was when Drummer, remember, her leg is obliterated from the deceleration event. They all get in the lift with her, and they kind of, we see the elevator kind of accelerate, and then it starts to decelerate, which is awesome. As it's decelerating, they lock in their mag boots so they don't float, but she lets hers go because she's been, struggling with this makeshift brace, and that sort of look of relief when she's in 0G is pretty awesome. So yeah, that was a really cool thing to see. And you can actually see the elevator, accelerate, kind of reach its point, and then start slowing down. And then you immediately get that, which is what we would see in any elevators. You feel that big sort of acceleration, and then when it starts to slow down, when it gets to its destination, you feel a little bit lifted off the ground because of that. So, science. I had a couple sort of offhand comments here, but Oh, when they're being chased through the elevator shaft, they threw down an EMP. You could kind of see he like chucked this EMP grenade, and then this pulse went off and deactivated two of the suits that they were pursuing with. Then they start to... So we have two opposing factions that are going on here. We have our favorite belters in the Behemoth. Is that right? Yeah, in the Behemoth, who were like, we have to go out as big damn heroes, Firefly style. We're going to shut this ring gate so it doesn't cauterize the wound and like obliterate the solar system, because that's what it appears to be spinning up to do. So we're just going to cut the ring off where we are, save everyone in the solar system, and go out as heroes. That's kind of what, Ashford and the Belters are, at least on the Behemoth, that's what they're attempting to do. At the same time, we have Holden and everyone else. We love him so much. At the same time, we have Holden and everyone else who are thinking like, hey, there's obviously some like communication happening and it's miscommunication. And so if we sort of concede and shut our engines down, if everyone shuts all of their engines down, we can show that we come in peace, basically. But Ashford really wants to go out a hero. I love him so much. He's like, I don't know how many space dives I have, but he's on that list. He's at least in the top 5. I would follow him and make terrible decisions in my life, but I would do it proudly. We love him. But yeah, they essentially try to like fire this laser at the ring. So they tried to shoot the high power laser through the ring to try to communicate with the solar system. Once they realize that this ring space is done with them and is about to destroy the solar system to cauterize this wound, where they went, you guys are crazy, we're shutting this down, my bad, just get out of our galaxy because we don't want your nonsense here. They direct the laser, because we saw it dissipate all that energy into the rings. We saw the rings heat up, so we know that if we fire it directly to them, it would heat up the rings beyond a stable point. And so they try to fire the laser at the ring. It's slightly off, thankfully. Just in time, they get the message across to everyone that one woman whose name I forgot, who was the assassin, who was captured and had the chem restraint on her, and then she got free, and then Ashford took off her chem restraint. But in the end, that was okay, because she was able to power down the Behemoth, and then everyone did the same. And then the ring space basically did see that as a conciliatory, we come in peace signal, and rings start appearing. Yeah, that's right. She was the sister, right? The sister of the other one. It's not a thing. It's just a thing. I wish I could remember the names. I'm not trying to be flippant about it. I really just can't. But yeah, when they all power down, everyone's kind of like, are we alive? Did we make it? Is this fine? And then all these rings start showing up. It was so cool. You start to see all these rings. And after that sort of awe and chills that I just managed to get again, the next thing I thought was like, man, I hope they had their eye on the solar system one. Because I would immediately take my eye off and then look back and be like, which one was it? That's all I could think of when I saw that, which sucks. But that's exactly what would happen to me, for sure. But they get all these rings that start appearing, and they are able to detect 1,300, I think it ends up being exactly 1,373 habitable systems all on the other side. So essentially what's happening here is that these rings that build up, that appear, all right, we have our protomolecule. Protomolecule shows up in a solar system, in a star system. This habitable star system the protomolecule gets activated. It basically like weeds out whatever's going on, figures out, this sort of, it's got this sentient property to it. It checks the boxes, then it goes and it builds this ring. This ring takes them to this neutral space where they're basically tested in their capabilities as a civilization. And if I'm saying anything that contradicts the books here, like, please feel free to throw that in here. If I'm saying anything that contradicts the series that I just misunderstood, I'm a fallible human being, throw that in here as well, because I think we'll have some time to chat at the end, and I'd love to talk about it and kind of hear what your thoughts are. But yeah, protomolecule goes, they build this ring system, this ring space where they get tested. They decide that this species, in this case humanity, is worth it. So through this ring space, they open up essentially a portal to everywhere else, which is kind of cool. Kind of starts to break your brain once you start thinking about how this works in general. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I only watched season 4 once. I do need to watch it again. But other civilizations, we haven't seen any, I don't think, that have come through the wormhole. But I guess my question is that we don't share ring space, right? This isn't like a galactic hub that people fly in and out of to go to different ones. It's like so you have like the solar system, the ring, their ring bubble attaches to all these other worlds. That world has its own ring space that they go into. It connects to all these other worlds. But these rings are sort of like, I hate to, because I'm about to just technobabble the crap out of the conversation right now, but it's like they're all quantum locked. Like they all have, so does every civilization have to go through the same hub? So they're all like traveling. Like I said, I only saw it once, so I can't picture the scene of them kind of waving high as they pass each other and travel from one system to the next system. But the premise is brilliant. They're all dead. That's right. Okay, yeah. So they all have a gate, but we've never seen other civilizations. Okay. So that makes sense. So if I'm distilling the conversation correctly, the protomolecule builds this ring takes them into this ring space. They get tested, they pass the test. It opens up the rest of this hub. So the ring space is shared among all these civilizations. But you don't get access to all this if you're added to it. The solar system was like a new little ring here. It got added to it. They didn't get to see all the other rings until they passed the test. Once they allow those rings to show up, they can, in theory, continue traveling. And so in a happier world, happier galaxy or universe perhaps, this would be a cool Citadel like Babylon 5 hub of, awesomeness and high-fiving and thinking, hey, we're cool. But basically, yeah, they all either killed each other, tried to populate everything, or they all failed the test. Although I think if they failed the test, wasn't the impression that the ring would and then you would lose access? Or they would destroy the solar system. Maybe that's it. Maybe they would just destroy the solar system themselves. Hijacks primitive life to build the rings. But then that life sort of... Oh, okay, I see. So it doesn't necessarily need to be sentient life. We're sentient. Humanoid, I guess. Civilization, level 1 or 3 or whatever it is. Whatever we decided last time, that they would be able to use just the biology to build the rings in the way that the protomolecule just used sort of biology to do it. Whether or not there's so this isn't like a prime directive. They have to reach warp travel to be able to do it. They only have remains of the proto-relics. Interesting. That's pretty cool. Philosophically, that's cool. So it just needs biology. It doesn't need to have technologically capable life necessarily. They're just, how did they phrase it in episode 12? They say they're basically building a road that the proto-molecule has gone in, and they're just paving a road to go through it. It's so cool. It's such a cool concept. I really, really enjoy the series. And in terms of the science of these rings, like I said, there's not really anything necessarily wrong with them. They're stable, artificially generated wormholes, but wormholes not... If we talk about naturally occurring wormholes, they're the ones with the geometry that black holes have, so you would fall into it. This is more like a Stargate type wormhole that you can just pass into and out of. And that they have this central hub. And for me, I mean, I'm... right. That's brilliant. The Soylent Green wormholes. I like that. For me, I mean, you all know I am deeply obsessed with Mass Effect. And if you're new here, I'm deeply obsessed with Mass Effect. It kind of reminds me of that it's like they have these iced over mass relays, right? And they discover, humanity finds one, discovers that it's not, in fact, Pluto's companion Charon. It's a mass relay, a portal, an artificially generated wormhole that does, thank you for the follow, that does connect them to like this bigger hub, right? That it takes them to the Citadel. Yeah, it's just, it's kind of interesting that then starts connecting all these civilizations. Now, quite similarly, humanity, goes through the mass relay, guns a-blazing. And in this one, they went in guns a-blazing, but the ring space protomolecule species has already dealt with that. And they have a method to go with it, which is put you through tests. Yeah, I mean, you know whose side I'm on. I just want humans and Turians to live happily ever after. In more ways than one. That's all I'll say on that matter. But yeah. It does. But I think, we can say this with any sort of thing. Next on my list that I really need to watch is Stargate again. Because these are all themes that we see throughout a lot of science fiction. And yeah, I would heck of love a First Contact Mass Effect game. And we do need more of Andromeda. I just want to go study more of Andromeda, not just one black hole system. But yeah. And then stop me in the chat if you don't want me to talk about season 4 of The Expanse. Like I said, I need to revisit it. But then it goes through into this idea that like they do go and visit these other habitable worlds, and that it is seen as an escape from the solar system, but you can never escape. Humanity's never able to escape. That's the overarching theme. People will never change. You can try to get away and you can't escape it. But I thought season 4 was really good. But I think season 3 is my favorite. This whole ring space was really cool. Like I said, I mean, I'm the happiest with the fact that even just saying at the end, oh yeah, but photons still happen to travel at the speed of light. So thank you. Yeah, they just focus on the one planet. But we don't see any, like, they do find a way to communicate through it. There is, like, latent communication, which is good and necessary. I haven't scienced that. Maybe we'll add that to the list of things that we want to science next time. Well, not next time, but one of our future streams. But yeah, it's cool. It's a good episode. So just to recap, and we can still chat. I'll be here. I'm just chatting, as it were. So we'll be here for another 10 minutes. The Imperium of Man. What's that? Did I miss a reference? I may have missed a reference. I don't want to pretend I know a reference. Oh, Warhammer. Gotcha. Awesome. Oh, that's on my list too. There's too much. Yeah, we all love it. But yeah, we'll have to get into that one a little bit more. Warhammer's a whole thing. I need to look at some Stargate episodes. If anyone thinks of like favorite Stargate episodes. I'd be really curious to see that. You would be correct there, and you can own that. I cannot compete with the 40K crowd. That's I have a few friends into it as well. Yeah, it's intense, but I respect it. I respect any of these deep passions that we have. If you are there's links down below to the Patreon if you're interested. But we do vote on future episodes to discuss. I would not be opposed to more Expanse episodes. They don't really get super sciencey in season 4 though. It's more just like the human dynamics of living on that new world. It's very BSG New Earth arc feel, although that was just skipped, 2 years past type thing, or 1 year past or whatever it was. But this is like it actually bears it out. But it's still really, really good, and I'm glad that they were able to save the show. We do have some fun suggestions for the next week. Per our discussion, was that the astronomy, or was this? I think it's just may have been last week. We are going to. Yeah, that world did suck. That world sucked. I don't want to live there. But on the poll for next week is TNG Force of Nature and Timescape. So 2 TNG episodes. The film The Martian, Orville's Priya, and Tomorrow. And then Deep Space Nine, Little Green Men, alongside Enterprise Future Tense, which seem like completely opposite episodes. But they use similar methods of time travel. If people remember from my bonkers time travel chart, they fell in the same category, and so people wanted to learn about that. So those are all on the list, and I'll announce over the weekend which ones win for that. Yeah, I know, it's a pretty good pair, I will say. That's a good pairing. It's very discordant feels, but that Enterprise Future Tense episode, that's where they find like the frozen body that they briefly think may be Zephram Cochrane, but it's a really good one. And yeah, I mean, I love a good Ferengi humor episode. But yeah, we've obviously drifted away from The Expanse, but that was pretty much it. There wasn't a ton of like, the thing is the science of The Expanse is so solid. I really respect it. I think, having Narain Shakar as an EP on it shows that kind of filters through. Did I catch how the proto-molecule was messing with time in season 1 to 2 of The Expanse? I'm gonna have to refresh my memory. I may not have picked it up. If it wasn't completely obvious to the plot, I may have missed that. I mean, I also struggled with season 1 a little bit. Okay, yeah, then I definitely missed it. I struggled with season 1. Just the pacing of it was a little bit hard for me to. Some people I respect, like I said, I love the series and I'm down with it. But yeah, season 1, I had a hard time sticking with, and then 2, I was off running. So I'll have to check that out. Thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, I'll look that up. That would be really cool. And yeah, Zach, I kind of think that too. Like, I was like this sort of funky detective dude, and I'm all down for sort of, murder mystery in space type thing, and especially where, the government conspiracy, and we have the whole corporation thing going on, and it is really cool. I like it a lot. But it was just not the pacing I was looking for. And then season 2 hit, and it was like Battlestar Galactica level pacing. I was like, next episode. He was beaten up by Amos in 2-1, where he mentions having a vision of Julie. Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. Thank you for explaining that. So yeah, I had a conversation with Naomi when he was being beaten up by Amos in 2-1. He mentions having a vision of Julie holding his hand and saying, "You belong to me." Oh, that scene killed me. But that was later in 2.5. That's really cool. I like that a lot. That's good to know, Brad. Thank you. That the first book is more detective styled, that it can be kind of a slow, tough read. That's good to know. I mean, I'm not saying I will, but how much sin are you committing if you skip the first book? She ducks out of the way. Out of curiosity. I'm not opposed to reading it, but so when Julie dies in 1.9 by the protomolecule she sees. Oh, Comtrend, you were on this. This is awesome. Good little things. I haven't really spent much time talking to people about the Expanse and breaking it down, so thank you, Brad. I appreciate the tacit endorsement. So we're good with that. Because yeah, I mean that's hard. You just have to be in the mood to watch certain things. But hey, Big Fun Art, we're just closing out our discussion about the Expanse. We were breaking down the ring space and all the fun science that was going on in there. God, I love Christian. Oh, I love Christian. She's yeah, so good. So good. And then was it the end of season 2 that had the attack on Ganymede and the zombie? I mean, everything I do is rooted in Mass Effect. Everything my brain goes to is like default Mass Effect references, but the husks showing up on Ganymede and attacking the humans and then the Marines. We talked about it in one of our episodes. Yeah, agreed. But I did still really thank you, 2.6. Comtrade, you gotta hang out here, man, because that is this is the type of discussions we usually have. People bail out my trivia knowledge. When I get asked trivia questions, I just hear white noise. But then I can science it when people remember it for me, so it does work. Oh, nice. No worries. So we did calculate when it comes to delta V, the change in velocity, when they are in that ring space, they go from a max speed limit of 5,000 meters per second to a max speed limit of just under 30 meters per second. And they experienced a deceleration of over 500 Gs, or 500 times Earth's gravity. The human body can sustain easily like 15. It's not comfortable. You don't want to do it for a long period of time. I think it can take more damage, and it depends if you're doing it this way or this way. This way we can take a lot more. This way is not how our bodies were designed to deal with it, because it's just surface area force, being distributed across, and so they decelerate. And the best example being I wish it wasn't as gory as it was, because but I love how gory it is. But when the slingshot belter, the hotshot belter, goes into the ring and experiences the instantaneous deceleration from whatever speed he was going to 5,000 meters per second, and he pancakes. It's the worst example of inertia in the best way, of just, this is why we wear seatbelts, kids. And even then, that's not going to help you. So your body's going to want to keep moving, and it will move, and it will shred itself, and you will never get that image out of your head. But I love how horrific it is. Like Brad said at the beginning, jaw, floor. But Big Fun Art, you are always welcome. Sorry we didn't get to it earlier. I am going to close out here, but I will be posting this all on my YouTube channel, which you can find a link to below. I have no doubt about that Denailer. I will definitely check that out. Oh, my partner plays Elite Dangerous. I have seen... I need to actually break down the science of it, because there is some really cool stuff, though. And you're welcome, Mohammed. And thank you all for hanging out here. So, yeah, if it was your first time here, we got some new followers. We got some repeat subscribers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love talking about all this stuff, and thank you for the follow as well. You can find my links down below. So I do record these and post these to YouTube. If you're watching these after the fact on YouTube, you can find links to the Twitch streams in that. And there's also a link to the Patreon where we decide which episodes we want to discuss in this. There's also a link to my donation page so I can get a good webcam that doesn't stress me out in the last 30 seconds before my stream. And, Babylon 5 game. That's awesome. I will be streaming tomorrow outside of my schedule at 10 a.m. Because I can't wait. I am now at the Archangel mission in Mass Effect 2, and I have to go rescue my space boyfriend. So I'm going to be playing that tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And thank you, Mohammed. Yeah, you can look up Dr. Aaron McDonald. The Science of Sci-Fi is a Audible series. You can find a link to that probably in a roundabout way, but finding me on Twitter is the easiest way. So, anywho, thank you all for hanging out with me. Thanks for geeking out about some science and inertia and speeds and nuclear bombs and all that fun jazz. And I will also be back on Friday to continue our Astronomy 101 class. So thank you all for hanging out with me. As always, live long and prosper. All right. Bye, everyone.